that is a compromise.
Which red lines do you think should be scrapped?
The things I would fight hardest for are customs union and single market membership, because there will be job losses in the event of coming out of the customs union and single market. There will be hundreds of thousands of job losses.
The question is, the thing is, well, we all know, because we've all been seeing happen in Parliament, how strongly the various parties feel about the things that they are holding dear. We're now in a position where we're talking about compromises, and the question is about which red line should be scrapped, so the UK's not left red-faced. What would you scrap?
The one I would fight hardest for Theresa May to scrap is freedom of movement. She needs to allow freedom of movement. Freedom of movement has been an immeasurably good thing. It's been a good thing for people coming to live here, and it's been a good thing for our citizens who've been able to go and live and work in other EU countries. I would fight hardest for that.
The woman in the glasses then.
All of this chat now has just been about, come together, collaborate, find a compromise. Why was this not done before? Why did people not work together before this? We've now got 70 days.
The man in the front.
The reason that all this compromise is difficult is because it's just based on a fantasy that you can get the same benefits of being in the single market without following the rule book. Now, I really was able to Diane, I voted for Jeremy twice as leader, and a third time, why will you not back a second referendum? It's what Labour members want. We want a second referendum. And if Keir Starmer stood for election right now, or David Lammy, I would vote for them over Corbyn, because he's been weak on it. Please just back, if you want to stand for the many, not the few, a referendum poll recently said 56% of voters would vote for Remain in the referendum. Why doesn't he back a second referendum?
Now, I'm going to come on to a second referendum in a moment, so forgive me, I'll come on to that in a moment. The woman back there with the scarf.
Listening to Diane Abbott's description of the arrangement that she wants with Europe, it just strikes me that we've already got all of that. We've already got all of that right now. They were the best deal that we're going to get. All of the other deals we're talking about, no deal, Theresa May's deal, none of them are going to be half as good as for this country or our children as what we've got right now. So why will Labour leadership not back the majority of their party and back a second referendum?
Isabel, before we get on to the second referendum, and we will get onto that, believe me, we're talking about which red line should be scrapped.
Well, I don't accept the premise of the question, because I wouldn't scrap any red lines at all.
The whole point of this programme is the audience asks the questions they want, and that is the question which you need to answer. What I'm going to pick up on is your assertion that freedom of movement has been a great thing for this country. It may have been a very good thing for Scotland. I think it's been a disaster for the rest of the nation, and the reason that many people... The reason that many people voted for Brexit in the first place was to get rid of freedom of movement. It cannot be on the table as part of something that could just be blithely deleted as a red line because things have all got too difficult. That is what people voted for. So what red line would you scrap? Hang on, what red line would you scrap?
Well, I'm more relaxed about the backstop situation than many Brexiteers probably are. So maybe there's some flexibility around that. But we must be able to strike our own free trade deals. This talk that maybe we can just stay in the customs union. Then what on earth is the point of Brexit if we're going to keep freedom of movement, which is what will happen if we stay in the single market, and we are not going to be able to strike any trade deals, then why are we bothering, frankly?
I'm grateful, thank you. Isabel, the premise of the question is that we are doing compromise, something that the far right is not particularly famous for. And as you tweeted, #pray for Isabel, because the only Brexiteer on the panel apparently look to your right and then look to over from that. They're trying to leave us well. This is the problem. You think you're by yourself, you're not. You're with other people who similarly fail to notice that what they're asking for is changing others, not changing themselves. Rory, you want to change the backstop, not yours EU. Diane, you want to change the no deal. That's not for you to decide, that's for Theresa May. You and dear leader could happily say, Theresa, I've talked to people with whom I strongly disagree, you're one of them, let's chat. Look inwards for a second and realise you're the cause of the problem. Just for a second.
The EU is in recession. Surely there's no need to remove any red lines. Surely this is a time to apply maximum leverage in any negotiation.
one of the problems is we've had 2 years of shadow ministers and cabinet ministers laying bare exactly how everyone's going to vote in any vote. And the EU leaders just need to watch Question Time every week and they'll know exactly how everyone's feeling. People say they want to stay, people say they want to leave. The country voted to leave. Simple as that.
I rather like the idea of EU leaders watching Question Time and getting tips. I think that's remarkable. Anna, let's just come back to the question, and then I'm going to move on to second referendum because we have 2 questions on that. But which red lines should be scrapped, in your view?
I don't think scrapping red lines is going to help the Prime Minister go pole, to be honest, for 2 reasons. I think, one, if she starts to be more flexible on a customs union or the single market, and therefore hopes to get Labour or conceivably SNP MPs more interested in her deal, she will lose Tory votes. And I think the danger for the Conservative Party then, if the Prime Minister moves too far to the opposition, is that the cracks in the Parliamentary Conservative Party just become too wide. So at home, I don't think it's going to help. And the second thing I would say about this is red lines are a bit of a distraction. There are 2 documents in the deal that Theresa May has signed. There's the big fat one, the withdrawal agreement, which has the backstop and all that in. And there's a short, very vague and woolly one called the political declaration. The political declaration isn't legally binding, okay? So, in a sense, it's a declaration of intent and nothing more than that. The withdrawal agreement, if we ratify it, is the European Union has said they will not renegotiate the withdrawal agreement, and Tory MPs who are opposed to the backstop are opposed to the withdrawal agreement. So that is where the real problem lies with this deal, over the document that the EU do not want to renegotiate. And that's a real problem for us now.
I'm going to carry on. There are so many questions here on Brexit. Before I do, I just want to let you know at home that Question Time will come from Winchester next week, and the following week we are in Lincoln. So details of how to apply for the audience are on the screen. I'll give them again at the end. Look what's happening here. Why would you not want to join in? Right. Our next question is from Harry Lister.
Would a people's vote be anything other than a democratic catastrophe?
So here we are, on to the second referendum question. Kirsty Blackman.
Well, Theresa May has tried to get her deal through the House of Commons. She said it's the only deal that there is on the table. She said it's the only one that's available. It's only one because of her red lines, but this is her point. She lost by 230 votes. That's a huge majority against her. It's unprecedented, the numbers against her in that. Now, I don't think, no matter how much tinkering she does, she's going to get this deal through the House of Commons. But what she could do is she could say, well, this is how I want to leave the EU. This is the way that I've negotiated it. This is the only way that I think is the conceivable way forward. Therefore, I'm so proud of my deal. I believe it's so good. I'm going to put it to the people and I'm going to let them choose between my deal and remaining in the EU.
Hang on, but it's a bit late for that. She's lost, well, it's an interesting idea. I mean, she has lost that vote in Parliament. So you're suggesting she still goes ahead with it on a second referendum?
So she says she wants to talk, right? Now, I agree the time to talk was before now, and actually we put forward our compromise proposals in December 2016, and she refused to take any of those on board. She says she wants to be constructive. She has to actually follow through on that. So far, it appears that she's still got all of these red lines that she's unwilling to compromise on. She's not going to compromise on any red lines, and the deal is going to look exactly the same with a few words changed. She's still not going to get it through Parliament. And if she still believes this is the only deal possible and we want to leave, we don't want to leave with a no deal.
I mean, in fairness, we don't actually know what's going to be happening on Monday, so I don't think we can predict with such certainty that that's exactly what it will look like on Monday.
No, I think her only option is to extend Article 50, then have a people's vote between her deal and remaining the EU.
So there are 2 problems with that. The first thing is that those of you in the audience who want no deal would not be satisfied with a decision between the Prime Minister's deal and Remain, would you?
But you also would be satisfied with parliamentarians supporting the Prime Minister.
Hang on, let Rory speak.
The second problem, though, is that a second referendum isn't going to tell us anything we don't already know, right? What do we know? We already know that the country is split almost 50-50 between Brexiteers and Remainers. Doesn't matter how many times you ask the country. The divisions are just going to get deeper. The point is that you're all sitting next to people. Some of you voted Brexit, some of you voted Remain. We've all got to work together, live together for the next 40 years. So my view is that we need a deal that leaves the European Union but remains close to it economically, close to it diplomatically in order to heal the country. bring this room together, bring the nation together.
Can I just ask, who here supports the idea of a second referendum? Stick your hand up if you do. The woman here. Why do you support it, and what would you want written? What the questions would you want on it?
Well, a second referendum is not catastrophic to democracy. Okay, democracy is kinetic. It moves. We're 2 years further on. Yeah, and we know a lot more about what Brexit would look like now than we did 2 years ago. And so all those people that voted 2 years ago, lots of people who weren't able to vote because they weren't old enough, have been following the conversations in Parliament, and people now are much better informed about what Brexit might look like, and it frightens a hell of a lot of people. So what we need is a second referendum.
And what questions would you want on it?
Well, we would have to have a no deal. Would people support no deal Brexit? Would people support the plan, whatever the Parliament comes up with, or do people want to remain? So there needs to be at least 3 questions on that.
And that's assuming that Parliament come up with a plan. The man here in the blue shirt.
The referendum, everyone's going on about a second referendum. David Cameron said it was a once-in-a-lifetime referendum. We'll be leaving the single market, and everybody knew because it was posted a leaflet through the door. Every single door in Britain got a leaflet to read. So when he says they're ignorant, they're not ignorant, they knew what they were voting for, and we voted to leave on March the 29th. Anything that less than that,
Well, of course, we're not hearing that much from David Cameron, though I did notice he went jogging yesterday. He's been on holiday, he's been jogging. Wait a minute, let me hear from Alan.
I mean, it might well be, as Kirsty says, that another referendum, I can't stand the phrase people's vote, I'm afraid, ends up being the only way forward. And I don't think it's anti-democratic. If Parliament legislates for something, that's democratic under our system. But I think you've got to be, again, you've just got to be honest about how hard and how divisive it will be. Firstly, it's hard to achieve because Parliament have got to agree to legislate for one. And you've
Can I just say, Anna, because Theresa May is saying today it would take a year.
No, it won't take a year. It'll probably take about 20, 22, 23 weeks to organise from start to finish. The last referendum they legislated in, December 2015, we had it in June, so it was about 6 months.
So it would take a year it would take a year if they took 7 months off in the middle.
Yeah, if they had summer, exactly, yeah. But it would be hard to achieve because Parliament has to agree to it, and then they've got to agree to a question, which would be a nightmare. I don't necessarily think it will be better than the first time round because I still think it'll be an argument about a future about which there are no facts. It'll be just as speculative and vague as the first time round, and it would be massively divisive because whatever else you think about the referendum of 2016, it was a remarkable moment in our democratic history that mobilised people who either haven't voted or haven't voted for a long time, and I think those people would, with some reason, feel a little bit hacked off that they were asked to do it again. And the final question, I suppose, is would it definitely fix things? And there I'm a little bit uncertain, because if you imagine we had another referendum, imagine we got to the stage where Parliament couldn't decide and we defaulted somehow to a second referendum. And we ended up with a result that was 52-48 the other way on a smaller turnout than 2016, with fewer than 17 million people voting Remain. Would that settle the question? No.
I just want to come back to you. Would that settle the question for you?
It's difficult, isn't it? No one really wants a second referendum, but on the other hand, I feel that people didn't have the information, didn't have the right information, and the Leave campaign was such a dirty campaign. And so I really think people need the full facts, and I don't think any of us have the full facts in the room. No one really knows what it's going to look like.
There were questions over both Leave and Remain campaigns. Diane, let me come to you. So would a people's vote, would a second referendum, be anything other than democratic catastrophe? Clearly you don't think that, because it's part of your policy.
Yeah, just to reassure some people in the audience, the second referendum, or people's vote, whatever you want to call it, is part of our policy package. We agreed it at conference. The first thing we have campaigned to do is to vote down Theresa May's deal, which managed the extraordinary thing of uniting both Brexiters and Remainers against it. It was such a poor deal. Now we are calling for a general election. We think that's the vote the public needs. But on the question of a people's vote, I don't think it's fundamentally undemocratic. In a democracy, you're entitled to change your mind. But let me say this, and I've said it in public before.
Actually, before you say that, can I just say, Jeremy Corbyn seems to be giving the impression of wanting to do everything but have a second.
I've just explained to you what our policies are.
I know, but he doesn't seem terribly keen on it.
It's fine to have jabs at Jeremy, but let me just explain to you what our policies are. And what I'm saying is what I've always said. The thing about a second referendum is people should be careful what they wish for. My view, and I voted Remain, is that if we had a people's vote tomorrow, Leave would win again. And you just have a lot of very angry Leave voters. But there is nothing undemocratic about it, and it may be that in the end, that's the only solution there is.
The woman at the back.
I'd just like to ask Diane, if Labour, who's desperate for a general election, if you don't get the result that you want, will we have a second vote on that?
Diane, I'll come back to you. Yes, the man there on the corner in the blue, no, just that's it there.
Would a second vote not be a betrayal of the Labour voters who voted Leave, which many did vote Leave?
The one in the back there with a hand up. Yes, you.
We only had one vote to join, and I remember the Leave Commission wasn't exactly very good then, so why have two votes to leave?
Man there in the grey top.
You know what worries me more than Brexit? And that is if we had a general election and Labour got in, Diane Abbott would be responsible for policing, immigration and the national security. That worries me more than Brexit.
Diane, I'm sure you want to respond to that, but I haven't yet heard from Isabel on the question. So, a second vote, would it be anything other than a democratic catastrophe?
So this will probably never happen again. I actually agree with Diane.
Oh my God, hold the front page, everybody. You won't hear this very often.
I have come full circle on the question of a second referendum. As a Brexit supporter, I'm actually not afraid of a second referendum. I think it is a sickening position to be in, that we have to, or might have to, have one. It is an absolute travesty that our politicians have failed to deliver on what was the biggest democratic mandate for anything. But if we have to go down this line, I think we'll win even bigger. And let's tell them again if they can't deliver it. And I just want to pick up one thing that you said, Dan. I am bewildered as to why Labour is so keen for a general election. You are way behind in the polls. What makes you think that you're going to win? It is a damning indictment, isn't it, on your leadership, that even amid all this mayhem, you and your leader are miles behind the Tories.
Just a point of information. Currently, we're kind of, in the polls overall, we're kind of level pegging. We went
6 points behind.
You're behind, Diane.
Yeah, but we went into the last general election 20 points behind. And Theresa May was convinced she was going to smash us. I believe that if we could make up 20 points in the last general election, I believe we could win any forthcoming general
Well, you need to have a general election, and you've tried and you've failed so far.
I don't think hope is a strategy, Diane.
I want to move on to another question. Daniel Harrison.
Is it inevitable that Article 50 will have to be extended?
Is it inevitable Article 50 will have to be extended? Anand, I want to come to you on this.
It's quite likely at the moment, yes, because even if you imagine, I mean, the quickest way through, I suppose, at the moment would be for some version of this deal to be passed, which is going to take a while, let's face it, because Parliament's a long way from that now. And then, just to add to your joy, after it's passed, Parliament has to pass this enormous piece of legislation called the Withdrawal Agreement Bill, which puts all the flesh on the bones of the withdrawal agreement, and that has to go through full parliamentary procedure and could take several months. And of course, Parliament might slow it down, the House of Lords might slow it down, MPs who aren't happy about leaving or the nature of leaving might try and slow it down. So I would say it is probable that we will. The only way I think in which obviously we don't have to do it is if somehow we slither towards no deal. I don't see Parliament voting to leave with no deal. I think there is no majority for that whatsoever. So I think it is more than likely, yes.
Sorry, haven't they already done that by triggering Article 50?
Legally, yes, but I mean, I suppose the rather layman's try to give to that is, but I don't think they were aware that that's what they were doing when they did it.
That's what they voted for. And I'm sorry, if they can't agree on anything else, we're going to go round and round in circles, second referendums, people's votes, whatever you want to call it. We need to deliver on the result of the referendum.
The other thing I'd say, and we forget this too easily in this country, is delaying Article 50 isn't up to us. The European Union has to agree it unanimously between 27 countries, and that's not always easy. And they've said, we'll delay Article 50 if you give us a good reason. If you're having a general election, if you're having a referendum, we're going to be less keen to delay Article 50 just to watch your Parliament shilly-shally around, fail to arrive at a decision, and you turn around and say, can we have a bit more time to keep... You need a plan.
Nonetheless, there are a number of Liz or senior politicians within the EU at the moment who are talking about the possibility of extending Article 50, which is obviously a way of delaying everything so that parliamentarians can find some way through this. Why is Theresa May so unkeen on that idea?
Well, the reason she's so unkeen on that idea is that basically it's a distraction. Delay is about timing, but it doesn't get round the fundamental problem. These things we've been talking about tonight, second referendum we've just been talking about, no deal we were talking about before, the only way out of this problem is a deal. And the only way out of a deal, I keep being kind of boring about this, is trying to get a legal text agreed, a withdrawal agreement agreed. And that's the key. All this stuff about delaying Article 50, fine. And as Anand has just said, if the European Union felt that there was sincerity from the people who didn't vote for the deal, Brexiteers, Labour, they might delay it. But the question is, are parliamentarians now going to be prepared? And this is why I like the question from there. Are they going to be prepared to be locked in a room and compromise? 650 people, lock the door, like one of those elections for a pope. Wait for the white smoke to come out of the top.
Would you like to be in that room, folks? I know, it'd be pretty interesting. No, I hear the answer there.
Can I suggest another reason why Theresa May is not keen to extend Article 50, apart from the continuing uncertainty that it would bring? And it's actually a very straightforward one. It is that there are European elections in May. Now, if we are still in the EU at that point, it would be an absolute travesty if we did not have any representation in the EU. So what would have to happen is that we would have to field candidates for the European elections. And I can tell you now that if we go down that route, there will be some kind of Brexit supporting party or entity that will put forward candidates, and you will get a slew of Eurosceptic MEPs going to Brussels. And she absolutely doesn't want that.
In reality, there's a bit longer than that because the Parliament doesn't actually sit until July, even though there's elections in May, so there's an additional time period there. And in terms of whether or not she has to extend Article 50, I think she has to ask to extend Article 50 because you've got to get through Parliament. You need to get the Agriculture Bill, the Fisheries Bill, the Trade Bill, the Immigration Bill, the Financial Services Bill, 600 statutory instruments. All of these need to go through Parliament in order for our laws to make sense. If the UK leaves the EU, they have to go through Parliament. Now, if she was to say that she was going to extend Article 50 in order to have a people's vote, then my impression is the EU would probably agree to that. I think they would be comfortable with that as a democratic process and something that they would be keen to extend Article 50 for. So I think that's her next step.
Well, they might not. We no way of knowing that at the moment. Diane?
Well, the Labour Party isn't calling for an extension of Article 50 because, as you heard, I think it's Institute of Government which said that there are, I think, 12 separate bills that need to go through before the end of March.
But the question is it inevitable, given the lack of agreement and given that at the moment, clearly Theresa May and Jeremy can't even talking, is it inevitable that it will be extended?
We have a government minister here, maybe he can tell us how
well,
the government is going to get through 12 separate bills between now and the end of March.
Hang on, let's not get into that level of detail. Simply the question is, will Article 50 have to be extended in principle, given that at the moment there is no agreement? That's the point.
If the government has a method for getting all this legislation through, of course you won't have to extend it.
Okay.
The other thing is that People didn't vote to leave on the 29th of March 2019. That wasn't on the table when they voted in the referendum in 2016. That wasn't hard. They didn't even know Theresa May would be the Prime Minister when they voted in the referendum in 2016. So this is not a hard date in anybody's mind other than Theresa May's mind. And the only reason it is a hard date for anybody else is because she's made it a hard date for other people. So it is perfectly possible to extend that date.
Now we've not got much time left on the programme, and we could talk about Brexit for the entire hour. Let's go crazy. Let's talk about something else. Just the last 4 or 5 minutes. Do you think? Should we do that? Let's have a question from Kalila Story.
To combat global warming, is it time we all went vegan?
Isabel Oakeshott.
Well, I wouldn't go that far, but this is actually something I really care about. Some years ago, I co-authored a book called Farmageddon on the true cost of cheap meat. And the truth is, we do eat far too much rubbishy meat. And that is not just a huge environmental issue, it is a massive animal welfare issue. And I think it's hopeless trying to persuade everybody to be vegans or vegetarians, but what I would like to see is people being much more selective about the meat that they eat and trying to choose higher welfare, smaller amounts of higher welfare food, in which people have actually reared animals in a compassionate way rather than piling them high and rearing them in barns in hideous conditions which no animal should be subjected to.
And can I just say, there's a little groan in the audience when we talked about this, but obviously today, I'm sure you're aware of this, scientists have said a new diet consisting of less meat, more nuts, could save lives and avoid environmental catastrophe. And of course, there's enough land to feed 9 billion people on Earth. This is according to the UN. If 40% of crops used to feed animals were used to feed humans. Anna?
Well, I have to say, Piers Morgan seems intent on turning us all vegan at the moment by having a go at vegan sausage rolls. I mean, I don't think we should all turn vegan, no, but I think we are very bad at taking into consideration the broader implications of the lifestyles we have. And I think with the challenge of global warming, we need to be more responsible and we need to start at home. And I think food is one good place to start because actually the food we eat is having a massive impact on the planet. Whether it's importing stuff that we don't need to be importing or the amount of meat we eat, that has implications for the future of our planet, and I think we all should be more concerned about that.
I find it funny how experts constantly tell us about global warming when they're the ones flying all around the world, going to the UN, you making all that carbon, all of you on the panel probably driven your cars all the way down here.
Got the train, we know what you're talking about. Look at the building room, we all got the train. The man there in the blue shirt.
What concerns me most about climate change is our ability to tackle it, given the divisiveness that we have seen through Brexit. Would the political parties, all political parties, be prepared to commit in their manifestos to work in a bipartisan way to tackle such things as climate change?
Well, the question, let me bring you back to the original question, Rory, was, is it time that we all went vegan in order to combat global warming? Go on, make that commitment here.
No, but I think this question here is a really good one because this goes to the heart of all our politics. And I think there's to make an unpopular point to end on, because I've got to end on an unpopular point. We've got to be careful with the idea that what you want is 650 individual MPs perpetually coming up with what they think. I think one of the things we're learning is that the things we've criticised for 100 years, party systems, whips, organisation, manifestos, have a value because there's a bit more predictability in it. And it doesn't matter whether you're dealing with climate change on a manifesto or whether you're dealing with Brexit on a manifesto. It's no bad thing for voters to know that when they vote from somebody from a party, they know what they're going to get. This idea that 650 people get to get out of bed every morning and be independent isn't necessarily the best thing for policy